And have a roll call, please.
Alan Gill,
Yeah.
Sam Coates,
Here.
Lynn Kasicki-Wegging,
Here.
Denny Hastings,
Here.
John Boutwell,
Here.
Keith Davis.
Here.
All are present.
Okay. And this is the Wastewater Advisory Committee meeting that on January the 8th, 5:30 at the Bedford County Courthouse. I'd like to, at this time, adopt the agenda. Is any additions or correction to the agenda posted? Have a motion for that?
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Who was the
Aye.
motion?
Motion, John.
John.
Sam, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, also approve the minutes for our last meeting, previous meeting. Is there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Have a motion on that?
So moved.
Who was that?
Denny.
Denny?
Denny.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're going to do a little bit of, while they're kind of setting up, we'll do some of our, any new business, and really, unless anybody has any additional new business, I think we were all sent a copy of the bylaws that, Lynn, appreciate your work on that. And seemed to me covered it pretty good. I don't have any particular comments or any additions to it. Does anybody on the committee have any comments or anything we want to add or take away from these bylaws?
I make a motion, we approve them as printed and sent to us.
Yeah, second on that?
Second.
All those in
Who was
favor?
the second? I'm sorry.
John.
Aye.
All those in favor of accepting our bylaws, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Like sign. I guess while you're getting set up for I think we can go into do a little of our old business. I think maybe we can one portion of it. Maybe we can come back to it after presentation. Had one particular thing they wanted to discuss in our old business, and that was some business from our last time and about a motion we made. And is there anybody that was probably a little bit out of wasn't necessary or didn't need to, but that was concerning our motion for making somebody ex officio. It was kind of surprised to us that Ms. Needy kind of brought to that, and which was very much needed. That we were just kind of getting set up, but we didn't know who it was or what the deal was. But he was real gracious in how we handled it. By the time it was over, we and I talked to him after that. He understood he probably didn't need to be on it. But
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to rescind that motion to make Eddie Price as ex officio advisor.
second,
I second it.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Okay, Jason, are you ready? You'd like to introduce yourself and you just kind of take, and what I'd like to do is I know we're going to maybe have questions, and then anybody from the committee ask questions, and then we want to open it up to anybody in the gallery here in the audience that may have some questions, and kind of have a question and answer period. Try to educate herself, and appreciate y'all coming. I certainly do.
So I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Roger Goodson. I'm the general manager for Consolidated Utility District in Rutherford County. We appreciate the the opportunity to come here. We're treating this kind of like a decentralized wastewater 101. So basically, this is going from the basics all the way through, just because we don't know everything that everybody knows. Just want to and we're just here to answer questions to the best of our ability and the way that we run our system, and to give you guys an opportunity to hear how we do it, and just to share our knowledge and experience over the years. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Jason Laxon. He's our Assistant Director of Engineering, and Jason can tell you a little bit more, but he handles all our step system reviews and specifications and things like that. So I'll turn it over to him now.
Thank you, Roger. And again, I'm Jason Laxon. I'm the Assistant Director of Engineering at Consolidated Utility District. And my background is, before I came to CUD, I worked for another utility, and we had your conventional municipal wastewater. So when I came to CUD a little over 7 years ago, I really knew very little about these systems. So I was tasked with learning everything I could, because this was going to be kind of what I oversee. And so during that time, I've talked to a lot of people. I've gained insight from our systems, from other people around the state and around the country, one of which, Bo Tucker, I see he's back here. I've spent a lot of time with Bo, even learning treatment. So you do have some people in the room that I didn't know were going to be here that are very knowledgeable, a lot more so than me when it comes to treatment itself. But Roger said, I'm going to go through the basics. Anytime through here, if you have a question, I'm good with stopping where we are and asking that question. And then at the end, we'll definitely have time for additional questions. And if I'm too basic and you want more advanced answers, definitely ask me what you want to know. And if I can't get you the answer, we will find it and get it to you one way or the other. So just a quick history for CUD. We started as a water utility in 1968. When 4 other smaller utilities merged, hence the name Consolidated. And then fast forward to the late 90s, there was recognized to be a need for some type of a wastewater service in rural Rutherford County. And so in 97, a supplemental petition for expanded services for CUD was signed by the county executive. That gave us, as a utility, the right to serve wastewater outside of the city of Murfreesboro. And then the first system was completed and put online in early 2000. So from 2000 to now, we've got over 25, nearly 26 years of experience in these systems. So during that time, we have grown to have 82 operational separate systems. Each system is built with a development by the developer and turned over to CUD. So they're built to our specifications. We inspect everything, and then at the end of construction, it's turned over to us. So we're now at 82 systems. We have over 10,000 step tanks, which they represent a customer each. So pretty large system. Our water system's a little over 70,000. So we're 1/7 of our customers are also wastewater. Currently, we have 11 newly approved plans that are either under construction or ready for construction. So tremendous growth still happening, and does not appear to be slowing down with these systems. And then treatment, we've got 116 recirculating sand filters, 1 Orenco AX Max, and 1 Infiltrator EcoPod at the moment. And as far as the actual treatment, we'll talk about that a little bit later, and then the technologies and what those make up. My computer's moving, but the screen's not. Just a second, I'll try reconnecting and Okay. We'll leave that sitting there. So a lot of times you hear the term step system. These are decentralized systems, step systems. Step refers to the name that's commonly used in Middle Tennessee that was adopted, but it's describing how we get the wastewater from the home to the treatment. Septic tank effluent pump. So it's going into a septic tank like most people are familiar with, and then the solids are settled and everything, and the liquid is pumped through the treatment. So that it's simply describing how you convey that wastewater from the home to the treatment. Good thing about this and why these are popular is soils are not needed for each individual lot. You can have a parcel of land, one area of soils that are usable, and then develop that whole large parcel with all your wastewater going to that one area of soils. So that's what has made these popular, especially in Rutherford County. A lot of development has opened up that otherwise would not have been available because each lot would have had to have its own soils on it. So that's the big draw for these and why these are definitely a big help for development.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm going to stay over here. That way I'm a little closer. So, we talked about how we came up with the name. The more generic name is decentralized systems. Some think of on-site. A lot of times that's thought of more as your single family going to one system. But then so getting in the step system components. Here you can see, this may not show up on the screen, but this is a little schematic showing like a little community. You got the homes with the step tanks, and they are pumping to a collection line pipe that's going to the treatment. After treatment, you're going to a dispersal area. And so those are your main components that you see broken down. So we're going to start at the home and then work our way to the drip field. So first the step tanks, and you can see circled here, this is the depiction of a step tank. And then what are step tanks? So step tank, all of us living in more rural areas, we know what a septic tank is. That's what a step tank is. You've got gravity flow from your home into the tank, same as you normally would. Your solids are settling. The sludge is rising, which that'll be shown better in the next slide. But they provide what's known as the primary treatment or the first treatment. That settling is that first treatment. And then there's a pump that pumps the effluent into the collection system. And so here you can see you've got the tank and you've got the pump in one end. The only difference in this and what we normally use is we use a tank with a baffle wall. That way most of the solids stay on one side and you're not pumping in as much of your solids out of it. This tank kind of shows that with the baffle wall. And so the wastewater enters from the home, your solids settle, you got a scum layer that rises, and then you've got a cleaner layer of, as clean as you can have with wastewater, you got a cleaner layer in the middle that flows over to the next chamber. And then from that chamber, you're pumping what the effluent, which is a little cleaner water, to your treatment. Here's a couple of examples of tanks. We allow both concrete and plastic tanks. Here's a picture showing one going in the ground, and then on the right, this is what you see when it's all finished. You see two risers in the yard. We put these in the front yards of houses because we need to be accessible, and we make sure we require an easement around the tank so that we can get in and work on that tank, because somewhere, hopefully far off in the future, we're probably going to have to replace that tank. And so that is one of the keys, is being able to get into it and work on it.
You blast or bust a rock out to put that in?
If that's what it takes. And in Rutherford
We
County,
not
that
got
happens more
kind of
times than
soil
not.
in Bedford County.
Yeah, in Rutherford, more times than not, they have to blast out for that tank.
What's the longevity?
25 plus years, we've never replaced one. So when you blast, however you dig out, you're going to dig out extra. Put your tank in, backfill with rock, with crushed stone. That way it's protected. And most of the tank manufacturers, that's what they want. And then that helps your lifespan. I mean, you think of people with septic systems in their house, how often do they change a septic tank? Not very often. Usually they're going to replace field lines long before that. Any other questions on these? Again, over 25 years, we have never replaced a tank, but we do make provisions because one day we're going to have to. It may be our following generations, but it will happen.
You know, this is the thing we see. I've got some friends that have houses that's got these that looks like a manhole cover.
That's it.
So that's a double manhole cover is what that is, right?
It's basically two manhole covers.
Yeah.
They're about 24 or 30-inch diameter, somewhere in there. And one of them accesses right over where the flow comes from the house at the inlet tee, and the other is over that pump.
What's the life of a pump?
Pump, average, probably about 10 years. And a lot of that depends on your customers. If you got people abusing, putting things down the toilet and that kind of things that shouldn't be, it's going to put more wear on that pump. You've got some that are very good, so we've got some that they've got issues in maybe 2 or 3 years, but then we've got some that's been there 25 years and never touched.
It has an alarm. It's always.
We do have alarm, and that alarm is based on the level in that tank. If it gets too high, then that alarm goes off, and then the customer calls in and lets us know. And when that happens, there's still a buffer. There's enough float level in there that we got probably up to a day to respond, but we don't usually wait that long.
Say the customer doesn't call in, then what happens?
It'll back up in their house.
Before it comes out, overflows?
It just depends on the levels. Now, those things are sealed, so there is a good chance that it could back on up. And if you got somewhere a clean out or something and there's a gap there, then it could back up in that area. Okay.
And if there is an electrical fault within the house itself, it will shut that down.
This is powered off the house's power.
If
So,
lightning strikes or whatever,
Yes.
and there is no power.
yes. Okay? Yes.
But But you've also still, like we said, you've got in 24 hours before you start seeing a backup.
When you look at the flow per day, now we put a little larger tanks in some. We put a 1,500 gallon tank on ours. And so with that extra length, when you set your levels, that does give you more of a buffer as far as additional gallons capacity. We figure that normally we have about 300 gallons extra empty capacity there waiting. And so think about that for your typical family.
Big buffer.
TDEC requires a 300 gallon per day for home on design. Most do not hit that. Most homes, depending on size, range from about 150 to 250 gallons per day. Your larger houses are going to obviously be more. So, anything else before we move on? So from there, we're pumping from the tank into the collection mains. And so as you can see, that's just the piping that's going to be out along the road. Each tank has a connection to that pipe. And it's simply PVC pipe. For wastewater, we think PVC is the best because of corrosiveness of the wastewater. You get into steel pipes and everything, you can have a lot of issues. But PVC is, especially in these situations with force mains, which is with pressure, these work best. And typically these are small diameter, 6 inch and less. Most of what we have are in the 3 and 4 inch size for most of our developments. One key thing is, especially if your water system uses PVC pipe, is to make sure the color you use green for sewer, because you don't want somebody going in accidentally tapping the wrong pipe if you used white or blue. So that would be an issue. Now we're going to get into more of the meat and what separates these systems from what you see a lot of times. So when you get into secondary treatment, you remember primary was at the tank. That was our first treatment. So now we're getting to our second level of treatment. This is going to be a more advanced treatment. This is really where for what TDEC looks at for numbers in your testing, this is where you're going to meet those standards. Your tank is never going to meet those standards. This is where you're going to meet them. This is going to be your highest cost and most visible portion of this whole system, because a lot of this treatment does cost money to get in, get set up, and to perform the way it's supposed to. Anybody doing this kind of has to evaluate the treatments for what they want to do. That's what we do. We look at a lot of different treatments. We look at how we operate, our operators' capabilities, a lot of issues. O&M, your power cost, your manpower cost, how many trips you got to make, what sampling you have to do, a lot of parameters when you're looking at the treatment to consider. And so anybody getting into this needs to look at this with that lens, and how do I want to operate and what's going to work best for me. So at the first slide or second slide, I mentioned we had 116 recirculating sand filters. So for 23, 24 years, this is all that went in. We've got 116 of them out there. The way that we constructed them is, if you look on the right, you can see the different layers. But for our basin, we were not building a big, robust basin. Well before I was there or Roger was there, somewhere the decision was made to allow a design that was really more pro-development. It costs less, but the lifespan that we thought it would last has turned out to be shorter. So with that shorter life cycle, that's the main reason we've gone away from these. If you look on the left, it looks like a gravel parking lot. There's nothing about it that's offensive. I mean, people that live next to it, they just got a gravel pad out there is all it is. So there's really no issue with it. But you do have to look at what it costs and your lifespan. If you were to go with a sand filter, I would definitely say go with something more robust, a concrete basin for that sand media to be in. the other thing you have to consider is your media itself, and that was another factor for us, was our sources for that in Middle Tennessee were no longer offering. So, people were having to look out of state, and the last one that I know of that found media, they trucked it in from Wisconsin, and so that does not become feasible very quick.
What's media?
It's basically crushed stone, crushed river rock is what it was. And it has to be, has to all be a certain size range and very clean, because you can't have extra dust and dirt in it and everything, because in the treatment, the microbes that do the treatment, they attach themselves to that media, and then as the wastewater flows over it, they basically eat the organics.
Does that mean that at some point in time, them connecting themselves to the media, that they clog the media?
Over time, it can build what's known as a biomass that over time can start slowing down that flow and start causing the restrictions, yes. And that is something we've seen after about 20 years.
Is there a cure for that?
Replacement. So we've not found anything else. And that's the other thing, is when you look at these systems, when you look at what you have there on the right, there is no pull the media out, just put new media in. It's a full-scale construction project for complete replacement.
At least there's a cure.
Scratch.
And it start from scratch. And then the question is, what do you do while you're doing construction? So that's one of the things that we've constantly think about. So with that, we're trying to be proactive, and ones that appear to be getting close to that end of life cycle, we're wanting to go ahead and replace them. And so we've done 2 of those so far.
Is there a requirement that, well, I've got to have X many square feet for my sand filter? Okay, I've got to have X many square feet for a second location when my first one fails.
That would definitely be a good approach. Have that backup area. And in all honesty, my recommendation is don't even build a sand filter. There's better technologies now with longer lifespans.
States, have you found the best technology? Then why are you going all over the country? So you haven't found any technology outside the state?
We don't want to just look inward in what we're doing. We want to
Yeah.
always be
No, I
open to
think-
what's happening in
I
other
think it's-
places. And in all honesty, one of the technologies that we've agreed would be a good one for us, we just built the first one in Tennessee. So you can't just stick with locally, but a lot of what we're seeing in Tennessee, there's a lot of things that have been used, and you can find them here. But when you look other states, Alabama, there's a lot of different systems. I've been to Minnesota and Wisconsin. There's a lot of different systems that are used, just different countries for sure. We've not been there, but in the Midwest, some other locations. I've been to a handful of places in Texas, and so these things are really used nationwide in different ways, and so part of that is looking at the different ways they're used.
Along that line, our main mission is rules and regulations.
Yes.
And I know in your 26 years, it's probably a living, breathing instrument, these rules and
It is, and I'm currently updating that right now.
yeah. So that's our main purpose.
Yes.
So would you implement these like secondary sites and these new technology in the rules and regulations some way?
If you have somebody knowledgeable in the treatment that can help guide you in what you need to do in that way, it would very much help that way, because me personally working in this, I have people very frequently call, hey, I want you to look at this treatment that I've got, that kind of thing. And we'll take a look at all of them, but most of those do not fit the model that we want. And so we've been very picky in that. But we do our due diligence in that and take a good look at each one just to make sure.
Well, how can we implement that as we're writing our rules and regulations as, you know, because you want to look into, that's what I'm trying to search for.
That would probably get in very deep on a lot of that, and
We can talk about, to me, tech.
It's the minimum. They have the,
Beyond those. I'm sorry. That's okay. I'll just try to stay in too, okay. So, you know, like I said, TDEC has really just guidelines, okay? And so what we have tried to do, along with some other utilities and areas, have tried to go above and beyond those guidelines throughout the years. And because ultimately, you know, we're responsible for these for perpetuity, you know, so that's why we try to go above and beyond to make sure that we are always going to meet the specifications and the regs that TDEC has, but be able to adjust as we need to. And as Jason said, he's updating them right now just to make sure that through using our experience on what works, to make sure that we're taking care of our customers forever, you know. So, because once the developer builds these, you know, they turn it over to us, and then we have it for, you know, perpetuity, you know what I mean? So we want to make sure it's built to our specifications so that we know it's going to last based off of our experience and everything. So, you know, we just had Spring Hill, they just came and visited. Alan just did a presentation for them for the same reason. They're looking at expanding into step systems and decentralized, and so they wanted to, how did we do it over our years of experience? So we're good with sharing it. You know, what we do doesn't necessarily mean that's what everybody else has to do. This is just what works best for Consolidated Utility District, and that's how we're going to continue to do it, because when the county gave us expanded our charter, they said, well, here, by the way, you guys have to handle it for the rest of, you know, the days. So we're going to make sure that we're a little stricter.
okay, then could we, I'll get you, John, just one more question. Because you have your basic rules and regulations, right?
yes.
And could we possibly work with you and then use some of your recommendations and we can adopt them or you know?
We'd be
some
glad
other-
to share what we have.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's on your website, no?
Yes. Some of it is the updated stuff I'm working on now isn't, and I'd be glad to. I'm not quite finished, but I'd still share it with you because you're going to be creating your own, using ours as a draft.
We've been challenged to do this in a year.
Okay.
So, you know, that's what we're set up for.
Yeah.
So we're trying to, because that's, you were number one, so we want to try to get these set up, and sometime we'd like to do that. John Freeman has it.
Okay.
Has some-
Okay.
And I would like to tell you, Consolidated does do a very great job. Y'all have been given a task that I'm not going to say is easy. What y'all do need to remember, it's not if this system is going to fail, it's how you're going to deal with it when it does
Right.
fail.
Right.
So those things that y'all are asking are very, very great questions. So if you have a secondary system and you already have a designated area for a duplicate system, that's the right key. What are you going to do until that time? You can have tanks put in place where y'all can divert your effluent, at least have semi-trucks pumping it, taking it to sewer plants. There's alternatives. But if you don't plan for that up front, when it comes time and it does fail, then you're in a situation, where am I going to put my tank? How am I going to get it in my truck? How am I going to get it there? You're into those type of situations. And I can go a lot further, but I think y'all are definitely on the right track.
And definitely those are considerations. We've had them before where we thought we may get into that situation, but we our operators are very good, and they were able to operate in a way to keep us from having to pump and haul.
So you have not run into this situation as of now?
Not, we've come close, but no, we have not. But one thing that we are working on right now is getting bid out, what we're calling is basically an emergency unit that can be carried on a truck out to a site and put in it for a temporary basis for temporary treatment while we can get repairs made or replacement made if something happens. And that's something just because of the number of systems we have and because of what I'm going to call a scare that we had, we see the need to do that. And it makes sense for us but just because of that.
I think a lot of this has to do with who the county decides to be hold the franchise for the county. That's very important.
And that is important. Your operators are extremely important. And I know you're talking about the treatment and how you select that and everything. I will say we, as a whole, Consolidated Utility District is very conservative. And we do not use TDEC as our standard. Nearly everything we do is more stringent. And any developer that develops there will tell you that, and it's frustrating for them. I get it. But for us, we're operating to operate these in perpetuity because our main thing is protecting our customers and citizens of Rutherford County, and that is what we're doing. So when you look at our standards, just for instance, I didn't get into our limits and that kind of thing, but TDEC, the main thing that we have to sample for is BOD, biological oxygen demand. TDEC's limit is 45. When we look at these treatments, we say we're going to treat these to under 20 to get one is give ourselves some room because we want to go to a higher standard. And plus, when you're going to a drip system, that lower BOD helps out in that drip system to putting a little cleaner water out there. So that is something to keep in mind.
Is there any other treatment that takes place in that initial septic tank on site? I know you got the head wall solids go in that side, the solids settle, water rises, spills over into the next chamber.
That is it.
There's no other aeration or anything else that takes place.
No other
in that?
aeration.
Okay.
No. And it in research I found is that give or take maybe 80% of your solids are settled out there. Could be a little higher. With us, with a larger tank, it may be higher, upward to 90%. So the research I've seen was based on a 1,000-gallon tank. So with us having a 1,500, we are probably getting a little better solids retention there.
Was it TDEX? Is there a minimum like 1,000 or something? Is that what they're
On these, they do not necessarily have a minimum, but if you look at their single-family septic system for a 4-bedroom home, I think it's 1,000.
I got another question on relationship with the local utility. You know, what kind of a relationship? Because we have Shebel Power and Bedford Utility. Do you create a relationship with them in the process? If you have,
I mean, we are a very large customer for Middle Tennessee Electric. As far as a direct relationship, I mean,
because they're running the water at the same time in this development.
Yeah, you talking about running the utilities in there and everything?
Yeah.
We do coordinate, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And we review plans on everything, utility locations, and that's a big deal with the step tanks is part of the reasoning for our easement is to keep other utilities out. Because if you get other utilities in there, when you go to work on it or dig, then you've got stuff in the way. So that's one of the things. You're
taking over the water lines and the.
We're both water and sewer, so.
So you'll have to have a relationship with, like if it's out in the county.
That's
Bedford Utility.
Yes.
So, I mean, can that be an issue?
Yes. Different utilities, yes, because what we run into more issue with is not, say, Middle Tennessee Electric, because, I mean, we're neighbors. We're right there together. But when you get your communications like AT&T and Comcast and others, they're liable to come in one day and all of a sudden just blow through there and put stuff all across you and then be gone. So those are ones that we really have to watch out for.
How can we remedy any possible issue with, I mean, if you want to put in a subdivision and they're willing.
You're going to have all your utilities or else you don't have the houses. And what we've done is, one is we set up our easements that the others are not allowed in. We call them a clear space easement. There's no other utilities allowed in that easement, and we don't allow trees, shrubs, sidewalks, or driveways in it because we don't want to have to replace those things.
But
And-
this would be a developer issue. They would have to work that out.
They'd have to work that out, but
That's what I guess that's what I'm
but-
getting at.
yeah,
Yeah, the county,
To me, that would all take place as the county's reviewing the plans that, for the development being out there. Each utility would make sure they're all gonna sign off on those plans.
Yeah.
And so that way each utility has their easements or their utility easement or whatever it is. And so they're not all on top of each other. We work closely, with Murfreesboro and Smyrna and the county is, for all of this stuff. And that is how, if you guys, and Denny had brought up a good point earlier about, having an entity that does it, I believe strongly that one entity to handle the sewer system is the right way to go, across the county for you, because you've seen you've read headlines from Wilson County and what getting different private places in there so as having one entity, now they're responsible for that, for all these systems across your county, and economies of scale as they grow and stuff like that can help share the costs, and so I believe one entity to run it all for all the different, like we do for the 100 and some, around that it's going to end up being, is the right way to go. But again, that's all. I think when you get to that point, who's ever running the water, whether it's Bedford County or Shelbyville or whatever, wherever the step system's going, I think that all goes through your review process with the county on the subdivisions. Planning Commission, yeah.
Jason, what would you say is the average cost to the homeowner, for the sewer piece?
I don't know that I have good numbers on that. If you've got, I know you mentioned Eddie Price earlier, he can probably give you a better cost based on the number of homes, because I know he's installed some of those systems for us, or for the developers for us. But my guess is if you look at directly the homeowner, so what we're looking at.
And I'm talking like the system's in, it's been turned over to you. How much do they look at? Is there a monthly fee to the homeowner?
Now that, yes,
That's what I'm
he can
interested
give you the
Yeah, so when we started way back in the old days, we figured, so your cost has to cover your depreciation on the system, because even though the developer builds it, they turn it over, we still have to pay the depreciation per the comptroller's office. Has to cover your O&M costs. Okay, so either your operator's costs and stuff like that. And so when we started back in the old day, it was $28 flat fee, and it was $2 per 1,000 gallons for the water that goes into it. Now over the years we are, we're at $5 per 1,000 gallons, and we're at $35 flat fee. Okay, that's just because costs have gone up over the years and everything in 25 years. So that's not bad.
What would you say the average customer bill is probably going to be for sewer?
For sewer, so we were roughly figure 4,000 gallons. Just say 4,000 gallons at $5 per 1,000 gallon. That's 20, and figure 35 flat fee. You're at $55 for that. So
it's countywide.
That's county. We don't do it subdivision by subdivision. We treat all our customers the same way, because they're all pretty much in the county, and they're all our customers, and that way you can share the economies of scale. So you might have a subdivision that's got 500 homes in it. You might have a subdivision that's got 100 homes in it. So the cost of it might be a little cheaper for the 500 homes for it to be built, because you got more homes. But you don't want to just have the 100 one paying more. It's hard to bill as a utility, so you just spread that out. And every year, every 2 years, we have a rate study done by Jackson Thornton. They compare all our expenses and stuff like that, and they make recommendations on what our rates will be, and that's what our board will go yes or yes, sir. They'll either raise it where it belongs, or they'll keep it down a little bit where it shouldn't be.
While you
So-
got the mic, one more dovetail question there, because, you know, one of the concerns I think in Bedford County is housing affordability. And, you know, for people to be able to afford to buy a house in Bedford County. And I'm sure you've had this question before. I want to give you an opportunity to respond to it. Yeah, a developer will say, because your requirements for your systems are more strict, conservative, that's the word used, it's going to be more cost to the developer to do that development. And of course, the developer is going to, in all likelihood, pass that cost into the price of the home. How do you respond to that in terms of, I'm sure there's a good one, yeah, and I want everybody to hear it too. Yeah, in terms of, I know one of those has to be the longevity of the system. Yeah, that the requirements that you have perhaps assure a longer term sustainability of the system. But how do you respond to that in terms of, you know, the impact on the ability for somebody to buy a house in Bedford County after those costs are built in?
Well, I don't believe that, personally, I don't think the sewer is a huge dramatic to that impact to that cost. I'm sure it's quite a bit, but, and roughly I'm just was going to use a number earlier. Jason didn't want to give a number. I was, say it costs $500,000 for the system to go in, okay, and you got 100 lots, right? So what's that? $50,000 to $5,000 to each lot. So
which probably wouldn't be much
it's
more
probably
than
not
putting
really
a septic tank
it's
in
just
and
what a
That'd be
septic
less,
tank is
that'd be
probably
less.
going to cost. So it's not that big of a
impact.
as far.
That's what I needed.
And
So
the
it's
re-
an
and
additional
again-
cost for putting that tank and stuff on the lot. It's an additional cost there, about $7,000 to $8,000.
Right.
It'd be
But
less.
you'd have to put a tank in at your house too, if you had a
Sounds
soil
like it'd
site,
be
you're gonna
less.
pay for that.
See, Bill Donnelly, your previous director, used to call me in for consulting on when we do rate changes and all, and I'd work with him on the rates
Right,
and all.
Bill. Yeah, and he had told me that. So.
Yeah, good guy, really.
And when you compare this to municipal sewer with gravity systems and everything, the price per home is probably not much different, because on a municipal sewer, you're putting in gravity mains deeper and,
Pump
and you got
stations.
connection charges and everything. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right. And do those developers bond, they have to put up a bond on those?
we don't require a bond.
So after it's turned over,
We do get a 1-year warranty,
Okay.
and that's from the contractor normally, well, through the developer. But the bond process and everything you have to go through with that, we just deemed that it wasn't really worth it to us.
Sure.
So, but we very heavily inspect everything. There is nothing that goes in the ground that we don't see and document or take a location, that kind of thing. So we very heavily inspect.
That cost, is that, kind of like an HOA where it's built in case you have a failure? Is that,
It
falls back on y'all?
That cost, yes. So with that cost, we're taking in money that part of that is planning for a future replacement.
You're building up an escrow
Yes,
maybe
that's
for
when,
that.
when he mentioned depreciation, that's what the depreciation is. It's building up an escrow, because at some point you're gonna have to replace
Does
something.
it go into a separate account?
We do not fund account like a municipality or a city, but we do have a reserve.
fund,
We do have reserve funds, and we have certain limits on each one of those reserve funds that we do have to maintain per our policies. So.
Jason, I don't know if you completely described how these systems work.
We didn't
You-
let
We're not there yet. We still got a lot left.
Yeah, because I was wondering about that. But
So-
I did have one question, and you may just want to answer this as you go through.
Okay.
We've had a lot of news media coverage about these systems failing in Tennessee. Around.
Okay.
And I guess my question with all of that, and maybe you can bring that up as you go through the presentation.
I will.
Where are the trigger points? Where are these issues coming from?
Okay.
I mean, why are they failing?
I will. I'll get to that
We'll
shortly,
point that out as
because
you
in
go
all
along.
honesty, the failures you're seeing have nothing to do with anything we've seen. because what we've got through so far, we're not even all the way through with the treatment. These are not the areas where the majority of those failures are happening.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the things in writing our regulations. We want to put regulations that minimize the probability of these failures
Yes,
happening.
I definitely, I will hit
So there's
that
gotta
very
be some
hard here in a
points.
minute.
Got pinch
So-
points. Sort of.
Okay,
Now, this sand filter,
So-
is it in a concrete basin?
what we were building in sand filters for so long, we're not in a concrete basin. That's why
So
we're
they
saying,
were
don't do it.
bedrock.
No, they basically were dug out. We had a wood construction with basically a sand bed, and then what I'm gonna call a glorified pool liner was put in to keep the wastewater in and the
Keep
other
it
water
from
out.
going into the
Yes.
bedrock.
Yes. And so what was thought of as a 40-year life, we're seeing a life cycle in that 20 to 25 years because of the components. So now we are starting a replacement program. So that is one reason I'm saying do not build sand filters like we built sand filters.
And that's a
it-
technology you don't use anymore.
we're not
You're not
putting
putting
any more
those
in.
in anymore.
No. If we put in another sand filter, we would build a concrete basin to put that in, and that would drive the cost up so high that everybody's going to beg for these other treatments. And the other thing is the sand filters take about 4 to 5 times the land area to install as these other treatments as well, because you have to have a large amount of square feet per home of those versus a lot of these other treatments. So thinking of the other treatments, what I'm going to call advanced treatment systems. There's pre-manufactured systems. There are a lot of companies that have these. That's where I met Bo. He actually, this technology, the Arinco Advantex, Bo is the one that sold us on these. But these systems use a very small footprint, but treat the wastewater extremely well. And the other thing is, when you look at that, you see 4 pods right there, where I mentioned earlier that to replace the media was actually a full-scale construction project to replace the whole filter. We could do one of these at a time, and 2 men could replace it in one day, in one pod in one day. So that is the type of things that we're seeing with the new technology, is with our abilities, and not only to have just as good of treatment, but to have better operation and maintenance cost and issues out of that. So in these, looking at these, we look at life expectancy of 40 to 50 years, and I'm going to say 50 plus, because really that's the bare minimum. Most of these, we're looking at the more expensive components, the housing of this treatment, like this one's fiberglass, that should easily be 50 plus years. The media itself might be in the 40 years range or so, but it's not a big deal really to change that out. And then, again, like I said, the repairs or replacement, they are closer to just normal O&M operations and not construction operations. And the other thing is we do continually evaluate new treatments, like Roger mentioned. I'm still going looking at different treatments, different places, that kind of thing, to see if there is another thing that might fit us better than what we're already doing. This particular one was the first sand filter replacement we did, and this was at the 12 Corners development in Rutherford County. And this one, the footprint of that is about, I believe it's 42 by, because the length of those are 42 feet by probably about 60 feet, and that replaced a sand filter that was 55 feet by 205 feet. So that can tell you the difference in the footprint that it takes.
Is that open top or is that sealed?
That's closed.
It's closed.
And that's the other thing, is we're not treating rainwater anymore. And then, which on this secondary treatment, like I said, there's a lot of them out there. This is one of 2 that we're using. The other one that we use is the Infiltrator EcoPod. We've done another replacement project with it. So we've got one of each in operation right now, and we're comparing what they're doing, how they're treating and everything. And when I said earlier the treatment was excellent, we wanted 20 or less on our BOD. The last samples we took, the numbers are, both of those treatments had less than 5 BOD. So it went even far beyond our expectations on that.
Are you about the same cost?
Per lot, pretty close. When I figured it up, they're about within 500 to 1,000 a lot. For the construction that we did on replacement, which is typically probably going to be higher than what initial development is, because we also had demolition of the old and that kind of thing. So
I think you would agree that this technology is changing real fast
it is
in the marketplace
yes,
across the country.
Mhm.
New technologies coming online, very significant changes.
yes, and that's the reason that we are continually looking, and not only just traveling to see other systems, but for us, it's important going to conferences, not just in Tennessee, but nationally, because that is where we see the technology, the next thing coming, and we can evaluate, see if it's something that we want to look at.
And there's new technology even for single-family homes where the septic tanks fail.
Yes, definitely.
It's really big, I think, in our area because we have a lot of septic tank failures. To be able to go in and put just one unit in also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of these, the ones that we have, both of those do have offerings for a single home that their treatment will fit into just a septic tank.
I just want to bring up another type of treatment that is out there that we have preferred not to do is activated sludge type of treatment. We prefer not to go that route because per the requirements of that, it would drive up O&M costs more, which then in turn has to go back to our customers. So, and then ultimately, no matter how you do it, it's all how, and Jason will hit that in a little bit, it's all however your soils are. So no matter, you could have activated treatment that treats it even better than our 0.05 or whatever, but does that really matter? Because, you got to pay to all the sludge away. You got to pay, for your, it raises the cost to your customers, and ultimately we're always running those between what do we want to do best for our customers.
Yeah, so all of these, they do have different O&M pluses and minuses, so that is something that we use in our evaluation. Following what I'm going to call the big box treatment, we go through, each of our systems has a building. We call it UV building because that's where our UV disinfection is. But that whole stand has both UV disinfection, ultraviolet disinfection, but also what I have circled there is, we call it an Arcal filter. That's the brand, but it's a 200 micron filter. So that is what is known as a tertiary treatment or a third level of treatment. So after we've gone through the big box treatment, when we are pumping to our drip field, we're going through this smaller filter. It's a cloth micron filter, one last pass, and that gets those ultra small particles that just were not settled out in the last. So it is just one more layer.
What about your phosphates?
That's something that
They're going to pass on through.
If they're that small, yes. Yeah. And that's not something that TDEC requires us to sample for or anything. So that's going to the soil.
Right.
And then the same stand right here I've got circled. It's the silver tube is our ultraviolet light disinfection. So the water passes through that tube and there's a bulb in there, and just the contact of that light, that kills any viruses, spore cysts. So that is disinfecting and making it really safer for human contact. Even though we're trying not to come in contact, this does add a level of protection.
That's just before it goes out to the medium.
Just before it goes out to the drip field, out to the soils.
Out to the soil.
Yes, and so for TDEC requirements, if you do not fence your drip field, this is required. You have to do this or some type of disinfection. But with the fence, and we fence all of ours, you don't technically have to do this, but we do it anyway. Because if for some chance you're in a neighborhood, kid gets out there, even though we've got signs on it, not supposed to be on it, gets out there playing and does something and they get in contact with some of that water, it's just a level of protection.
This UV protection is really good protection. I have a patent on water quality, not septic systems, but just plain water quality.
Yeah.
For portable systems for cleaning water and using UV to do it.
Oh, yeah. UV is definitely a recognized treatment for disinfection, both using the water and wastewater industry nationwide.
HVA systems.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That was a COVID thing that started putting the
Okay.
UV systems in HVA
I bought a company that did that.
Okay.
air handlers.
So we've been through quite a bit so far. I'm going to tell you that everything we've talked about up to now is really not important how you do it or what you do compared to about what we're going to talk about. We're looking at the drip dispersal, getting into the soils. The number one limiting factor, and I'll say this over and over, the number one limiting factor of these systems is your soils. If you don't have soils, you don't have a system. I have people call me, I bought a parcel of land, I don't have soils, so I want to put in a step system. Well, sorry, but you got to have the soils. And there's a lot of misunderstanding there. You don't have to have soils on your whole property, but you have to have soils for these systems. Your step tanks can be replaced. Your collection lines can be replaced. Your treatment can be replaced. However expensive it is, it can be replaced. Your soils fail, there's a good chance you don't have soils next door to just buy and add to it. So this is the one factor that we are conservative on, more conservative than TDEC. This is the one factor, the main factor that gives developers heartburn. And that's something I deal with all the time. Well, TDEC allows us to do this. Well, Rutherford County, one is we've got a lot of experience in this, so we know what we have in Rutherford County. The soils are sporadic and they change quick. And I'm certain Bedford is not much difference, being how close neighbors we are. So as I go through this is the most important thing to get right. And so this is the one thing that you got to make sure you've got your protections in any way that you can to protect yourself as a provider, because as Roger mentioned, these systems are not a 10-year system or a 20-year system. Perpetuity is a long time. So when you look at the drip dispersal area, the treated effluent, it is pumped from that treatment through that UV stand, and then it is out to these drip zones. When you look at this picture, you can see some real green striped areas, and then some areas that look a little more dead. It is very easy to tell where our drip zones are. In aerial photography, you can look around Rutherford County and you can pick these things out easily. So that dispersal is through real small diameter drip tubing that was originally designed for irrigation for a lot of ag purposes. It works well. It's very consistent in how much it puts out. You can design exactly with these things because they are very consistent. And then, like I mentioned earlier, you can either fence or not fence your system, and that will depend on the disinfection. And again, we disinfect anyway. And then signage is typically required. That way, throughout the neighborhood, the limits of your system are known. And another thing for fencing is we like the fencing because we want to limit access. The soils, as I mentioned, that's your number one critical factor. You've got to protect them. You don't want somebody running out there in their four-wheel drive doing donuts and anything else. So if your soils get disturbed to the point where they can't receive the water, then they are no good any longer. So anything you can do to protect them, I definitely recommend it.
Do you need a secondary site?
We do,
Yeah.
and that's something I'm going to get to. TDEC does not require it, but we strongly recommend it. This just kind of shows you the drip tubing. And the amount that you need is based on your loading rate of your soils as far as the amount per home. Our maximum loading rate that we allow, we require for your primary that you're talking about, we require 2,000 square feet of soils area per home, which would mean somewhere in 5,000 to 10,000 foot of this tubing would go in for every home. It's very small diameter. It's 1/2 inch, probably about the size of your pinky or a touch bigger.
How deep is it?
8 inches.
8 inches.
Yes, we install it at 8 inches.
How deep of soils do you need?
T-deck requires a minimum of 20 inches, and we require a minimum of 24 of good soils before you get to what we call a restrictive horizon, something that's going to stop that
Either
flow.
clay or bedrock.
Yes, exactly. So this, when you look at this, our soils consideration. So my number one bullet here, number one limiting factor. I can't stress that enough. Rarely will additional soils be available. The neighbor may have already built another development over there, so those soils are taken. The other side may be a rock pile. Who knows? You may not have anything else available. Most of the variables in the design are with the soils. What are your soils areas, that kind of thing. When I've got developers come to me, it's not what kind of home you're going to build, what this and that. What I want to know is, what are your soils? Have you already talked to a soil scientist? Do you have an idea of what you have at least, even if it's not detailed yet? So those are things that we have to know. Not all soils are equal. We're in the agriculture area. Most people have an understanding of soils that just because you plant all in one big field, you don't have exactly the same from one end to the other. Soil types can change quickly. We do reduce loading rates even on what's considered usable soils on a less desirable soil. You mentioned clays. Those shallow clays are a detriment. That you can use them, but you gotta reduce your loading rate. They just won't accept the water like your loam.
Means a bigger site.
Bigger site, more square footage per home at that point. And so for us, if the entire site has shallow clays, we're going to reduce the loading rate by 1/3. That means you've lost 1/3 of your homes that you thought you had. And yes, I understand that is a big financial commitment and a big detriment to the developers, but the developers are not going to be servicing this from now on. If they do proceed, when they find that out and they build this, that is the one thing is in Rutherford, we're finding most of our developers now are coming from out of town. When they finish this and sell off the development or finish homes, if they're actually building homes, then they're gone. And then here we are with a system that we have to make sure it's going to work. Other soils that sometimes they may not be as much shallow clays, but what is known in the soil scientist industry is moderately well drained. That is one that has really come to the forefront in the last few years, and that is more of an agriculture term through the soils through history before it was really looked at for the wastewater industry. I tell people that take out well drained. These should just be moderate soils. And these, we don't even guarantee we're going to use them. We look at them on a case-by-case basis, and some we use, some we don't. But if we use them, at the most, they're going to be half of our maximum rate.
Do y'all use the old soil maps that were done by USGS back in the?
Those are just a big overview of what you might have. But no, we do not use those for design. We require a soil scientist. Previously, we said licensed, but Tennessee did away with the licensure on the soil scientist. I don't really want to get into that because I was not in favor, but they did away with the licensure. But they do still have an approved list for doing septic in different levels, and so we do require it to be an approved soil scientist through TDEC. But what you see happening right here, you see two folks down there analyzing the soils, and you've got another sitting up above them also looking at things. The one sitting up there, we hired. That is our soil scientist. We quality check everything. First, the developer soil scientist goes out and maps. Then we go out with them and quality check everything to make sure what we're getting. And that is one thing because, as I said, number one limiting factor, what you got is what you're going to have from now on. You got to make sure it's right. So I strongly recommend, even if it's not on staff, you have a soil scientist consultant that isn't working for you and not for the developer. And when TDEC stopped doing the quality checks up until about 2.5 years ago, I believe it was, they were still doing that. And then there was some pushback against some of what they were doing, and they just said, all right, we're not going to do this any longer. And first thing we did, we had a consultant that we trusted. We said, hey, we want you to come do these quality checks for us, but you can't do work in Rutherford County for the developers. And so he agreed to do that, and we used him until we hired our own. But I would say, just starting out, I would recommend finding a soil scientist you trust that's going to work for you and not for the developers.
But if we contract with you, you would have the person.
On staff.
Yeah, we have our own person on staff.
So it would be, as a planning commission, then the developer would bring in theirs,
Yes.
and then y'all would review that.
Yeah, I mean, for that's how we do ours.
Yeah,
Is
that's
well, and we don't just review them. Our soil scientist goes out there
Yeah.
with them, feels the dirt, checks the layers, makes sure that these layers do match.
Is that during the installation or during the
This
preliminary?
is before design.
Okay, good.
All the soil mapping has to be done before this system is designed.
Yeah. That'd be before it gets to the planning commission.
Yep. And so earlier we mentioned that these things, you got to have a backup in something like this. So sustainability, reserve soils, we require a minimum of 50%. So whatever was required to be put in the ground, we required another half of that in addition. We've had discussions about changing that to 100%, and we may still do it. Williamson County does 100%. Now the caveat to that is they also allow TDEC's maximum loading rate, and so it's probably a wash with what we have. It's pretty close to the same. I'm thinking some other counties are requiring 100%. There are some areas around Hamilton County that are putting some of these in, and some of theirs require 100%, but I believe part of it may, with them, they looked at how far it was from municipal sewer, that the closer they are, then maybe they could go less in case they had to run something out there.
On an average development, how many acres typically are going to have to be set aside soil site for?
That depends on your soils.
It depends on your soils, but at our maximum loading rate, rule of thumb for us, at most, you're going to get 14 homes for 1 acre of soils. That includes both your primary soils that are going to be installed and your reserves. So about 14 homes per acre for the way that we're doing this. If our loading rate was reduced, then your number of homes per acre is reduced.
Failure of these drip lines is when the water starts coming to the surface. Is that correct?
TDEC sees that as a failure, as a violation. So if something happens and water has come to the surface and stays there. Now, when you have pumped and you've gone out to a drip zone, sometimes you see a little wetness up there while it's actually pumping. But
Well,
that water should go down in so many minutes. If it does not go down in a certain number of minutes, then TDEC sees that as an issue.
You got flash floods and all to deal with,
Yep.
and that's going to affect your water table level
So,
in the soils.
exactly.
Wet seasons, you have a month and you have 8 inches of rain spread out over that month's time, then there's a good chance that some of your effluent's going to come to the surface.
It is. And so what you just mentioned is exactly what you have to think about. If you've got a big field, when you've got a good steady rain, you're going to have some areas of that field that hold up good, that don't have water standing.
Right.
Some areas just get sloppy nasty. So those sloppy nasty, that's those moderately well-drained soils. You put a crop on it, it still grows good. Everything looks normal, but when it gets wet, you can't get in there.
Right.
And you've got to watch out for them. The reason that you have to keep that in mind is when you put this on, I figure that we're tripling the rainfall on this land. You don't see the waterfall, but you're tripling the rainfall as far as the wetness. So you got to use those areas that can take that water. The ones that were borderline to start with, or they're going to fail.
Quick.
Yes.
and then you got a runoff problem.
And that's the issue. If the water stands on top and does not go out in go down into the soil, when it comes a big rain, it's gonna run off, and that's what we don't want. And a lot of that, if you see the news in Wilson County, that's what's happening, is that water, for whatever the reason, it's not going down and it's running off.
The technology on the treatment of the sewage has come a long way.
Mhm.
And for the last 5 years, I've been working on turning the liquid into vapor form faster, and that's where the problem really comes in on the end, is the vapor turning into a gaseous form.
And evaporation is a form of dispersing this. If it evaporates, then it's not sitting there, and that is okay. But in thinking of the technology, now we talked about the treatments a lot earlier. One thing is, at the treatment plant, unless you find some other way to deal with the actual water content, the amount of water, you still are gonna have that same water going to the drip field, no matter how clean it is. I mentioned how well ours are treating, but it's not less water than something that treats less. We still have that same amount of water we have to deal with. So that's another reason these soils are so important, is no matter how much water it is, these soils have to be able to take it. And I know earlier you mentioned statewide how many systems are failed.
Mhm.
When you go and look at their reports, this is where the failure is. It's in these soils and not taking the water. They're either installed improperly or in soils that never
Could
could
have been
handle
there.
it to start with. Not that the levels that they are sending it out there. And that, for us, that's an issue with TDEC, is that they have a maximum loading rate, but they do not have the ability to force somebody to design it less than that. And so that it is one of the issues. And as our own utility, we do have the ability to do that, because we just say, no, we're not gonna take it if they're not gonna design to what we see it needs.
So not every area is gonna be suitable for development.
Not every area, no. If they don't have a soils area, they cannot develop.
Just because you got a lot of land doesn't mean you can develop it for these type of homes.
If you don't do your due diligence, then I hope you like to hunt.
What this allows you to do, though, is take bad land that can't be used for farming and have some good land beside it, and you don't use up all the good land, and you put the houses on the bad land, and
That's exactly what we see.
yeah, and that way it don't take our good farming land away from us
So
if it's used correctly.
So if it typically your good farming land with your good soils, that's where you're gonna put this system. And if the other part of your property is rocky and hilly, then that's where you're gonna put the houses.
But you're still taking the good farmland out of production.
It is out of production, yes.
But not as much as if you take it off.
Oh, I
I
understand.
will say that with these, because we got so many of these systems, we do have a working relationship with local farmers for cutting hay. So there is a benefit to these in that, and it's a mutually beneficial for both of us.
So they can cut hay on it.
They can. We just have to work out with them and basically train them that when you're out there, watch for wet areas. If you can't go out there when it rains, you're not going to go out there so many days after it rains, that kind of thing. So there are some things that it's a little different than your typical operation that you do have to be mindful of. We got boxes with controls and everything in them, so they have to avoid those and watch out for them. But we have a lot of, I'd say the majority of ours, probably 60% or more, are all cut for hay.
I've talked to some fellas that cutting hay on them, and in August they can't cross.
There's some of them that don't need to be. You're right at times, yeah. And it's usually not the whole thing. It's usually spots. And when I mention these with the soils, years past, we've got somewhere we've installed some places where the soils now we would not, or at least not loaded as high as it is. And a lot of that is from things that we've learned over the years. So, and also looking at this is life of the soils. We've got a 25-year history at CUD. Septic systems across, all over the countryside. How long are those operating? We don't know the actual life of these soils, how long they're going to take this, but if these are done correctly and not overloaded, it's going to be a very long life. we talked some about TDEC and what they do. So this, looking at CUD versus TDEC, what are we doing different? TDEC does not require reserve areas. They would love to, but they have been pushed against, is the only way I know to put it, where they've not been able to update what they're doing or change what they require. So, and with TDEC, we're looking at statewide and not as much locally. So TDEC does not require reserve soils. CUD requires a minimum 50% reserves. We've had talks about increasing that, and we very well may do that in the near future. There's the reserve soils, that's the opportunity to install additional drip tube in additional zones if you end up with an area that, like you mentioned, you've got some areas that stay wet. We can install additional, so then you're spreading your load out over a larger area, and that can bring that down. We've got places where we have installed that.
That's where that 50% comes in.
Yeah. Yes, and we've got some sites where we have done that.
Can you base it on your percolation rate?
Yes.
You know, if it had a higher percolation rate, you could say 50%, and it had a lower one, you'd require 100%.
That, and that's how you want to set that up. Definitely. I mean, there's ways you can set that up.
But we would need, you know, a professional to, you know, get us that ratio.
That is where that soil scientist working for you comes in, because you need somebody that is protecting you, watching out for you, and being honest with you about what's there. The soil scientists that we work with on the developer side, they're good soil scientists, but in my mind, they're working for the developer, not us. And so if something could go either way, they're going to go that way.
So the soil scientists could answer that, say, this site we had 50 homes, and they had their site. They would say, this would be good enough. You wouldn't need 100%. It's 50%. Soil scientists could do that.
I would probably myself lean for having a set amount and just going with that amount no matter what.
Or just go either 50 or 100 or whatever.
That's the way I would lean.
Don't depend on that.
Because then it becomes subjective to somebody's opinion.
Okay. Gotcha. Yep.
So the other thing I talk about loading rate. Our maximum is 60% of what TDEC's maximum is. They allow up to a 0.25 gallon per day per square foot of soil. We allow up to 0.15 gallon per day per square foot. TDEC cannot require them to reduce the loading rate below that. Often they will recommend it, but that is all they can do is recommend. They can't force. We can just not take something, not allow it if we don't think it will do that. So ours at 0.15, if we have shallow clays, those shallow clay areas, we're going to reduce it to 0.1. So we've taken away a third right there. If we have moderately well drained, we may or may not take it. If the wetness features, those moderately well drained, that's the issue, is they've got historical wetness features. So certain times of the year, they are wetter soils. If those wetness features are deep enough, we may take it, but we're going to have a maximum 0.075, which is half of what our typical maximum is. So that is the way that we're approaching it right now. And our soil scientists, when not quality checking, I mean, these come in waves and cycles as far as when they come in. When she's not doing that, she is also going around to our other systems, and she's testing soils and checking them and doing some studies to see what will some of these soils take. Let me load it as heavy as I can and see just how far can we go. So we may, most likely we'll be changing our loading rates again at some point based on studies that she's doing on our own sites.
You probably don't know this, but we're working with International Paper to create an organic 30-minute soil that can be imported and used with organics. Which is going to really help on the backside where these soils are so poor. And using with International Paper and their byproduct that they've got, it's making a lot of progress now.
Well, and that's something that TDEC right now, I'm going to call that like an engineered soils. Mm-hmm. Right now, TDEC does not allow that. And that's something they'd have to look at. Yeah, I've been to other states that do what I call an engineered soils area, and they appear to work pretty well, but it is something that I would have to see a lot of information and data on, but with TDEC first, they're going to have to approve it before we're allowed to use it.
We're working.
Okay. So the quality checks, I've mentioned that with our soil scientists. To me, that is very important. TDEC did that up to about 2.5 years ago and then just completely stopped pretty much overnight. And so that is something we've hired our own. I strongly recommend having a soil scientist on your side that's looking out for you. So recommendations for success, I want to just throw a couple of things down. And I've mentioned this a couple of times already. Have a soil scientist working for you. Number one limiting factor, those soils. We've got to get them right. If they're not right, the system is going to fail.
Is your soil scientist licensed?
She was until the state did away with licensure. Yes. So.
Tried to stop that.
Yeah, we hired her from TDEC.
Oh.
We actually, felt like we got one of, if not one of the top soil scientists from TDEC. We recruited hard for that position. So
Well, she may not have a license, but she has a certain level of credentials.
she does, and she's known throughout the state and by the soil scientists. They know her abilities, and the other thing is she's not afraid to stand up for us and what we're doing. That she's not, for lack of a better term, she's not a pushover. So that was one of the big things.
Oh, to keep the license itself. At the state
Well,
level.
we tried our best, but that
Yeah.
was something that
They
the
should be
legislators last year did not agree with. Establishing realistic loading rates. What are your soils like in Bedford County? What can they take? If earlier this year or last year, I was in Wisconsin, Minnesota. They have a lot of very sandy loam soils where we're looking at 0.25. They had areas they could do 2 gallons per minute and higher because their soils could take so much water. It was like pouring water over a big pile of gravel. It just immediately disappears and it's gone. So they're not nationwide or even in the state, they're not the same. So we got to look at your local soils. What can you do? And establish realistic loading rates and what you can handle. So it's not one size fits all. It's got to be very specific to your area. And then the other thing earlier is not near as critical, but treatment. How do you want to treat it? How do you want to operate? What's important to you? Personnel, O&M costs, electric costs, all that. You've got to take all those into account. Then, any more questions, either Roger or myself?
You talk about cost. We as this board are not gonna have anything to do with any of the treatment. We're gonna have somebody else that's gonna do your work. And that's where, we're gonna have to dictate that to those people.
Definitely, you got to set your guidelines and your parameters, your criteria that they're going to go by. We've got ours, and I've been tasked with overseeing this from CUD's perspective for our systems, and that involves everything from concept to completion. And
To
at completion,
operation.
well, I turn it over to our wastewater maintenance team at that point. But I work with them and see them every day, so I definitely don't want to have to be hiding my face because of something I turned over to them.
Right.
But I care about what I'm doing and protecting the ratepayers and the citizens. So just everything on these systems and the criteria we put in, design plans that come in, I review every one of those. And TDEC knows that in our service area, they do not review plans unless I've stamped them. And so that's another parameter is you've got to have somewhere in there, somebody looking at those plans, whether you're going to trust TDEC to take care of all of that, or if you've got somebody else that you're going to task with that or consult with that.
From what I understand, Wilson County has a private firm. Is that correct?
I'm not sure about Wilson. I do know Williamson County does.
They have a private firm.
Yeah, Wilson Water and Wastewater Authority, they contract off to a private firm to run their systems.
And now they're looking at adding a second private firm.
That's what I've heard, yes.
Well, I've heard that they're looking at that.
And I know that for the operation of the system, but when you look at actually reviewing designs, that part I'm not sure about. Like I said, I do that for us, and I know other counties have a consultant that does it, that type thing, and some places don't even have that. It's whatever TDEC allows.
The closest thing we've got in Bedford County would be Cheville wastewater, and
That's where your franchise is.
Well, yep. And I would think that for reviewing the actual design, you're going to want an engineer working for you to review that design, making sure that it meets what you're requiring, and that engineer needs to be familiar and have a good understanding of these systems.
There's engineering firms that specialize in this in this area that a lot of people use those same engineers over and over. And I know you when you see their plans, you know you've got something.
Most of the time, which I will tell people, and my wife doesn't like it, I'm very critical. And when I look at these plans, I've never had one come through just one time and be done. But there are some that are a lot better than others, I will say that.
do you do the engineering for Consolidated, or?
I'm on staff engineer, but for these developments, I do not design these, I review these.
Okay, so they've got their own engineer
Yes.
that presents a plan to you.
Yes.
And you look at that plan and then you approve it or disapprove it.
Yes, I either approve it or I issue comments back.
Okay, because we're just in our youth here. So if we did it, then we would contract with Consolidated, so that anybody that came in with a development would have to go through you. Is that right? Or we can. I don't know how many. I don't know how many.
I don't know if there's been any other agreements or anything, but right now we're just Rutherford County.
We're just here today.
I mean, okay. How many utility districts?
What it is.
Yeah.
You're not looking for a job.
I just want to know the process.
Thank you.
So
You're not looking for a
we're
job.
here we were asked to come here to present information about step systems. We came here today to just present basically Step Systems 101 and answer questions that y'all had. As you move forward, there's a lot of other opportunities to talk about things and stuff like that, but there's nowhere near that's, we're only licensed, we're only, franchised in Rutherford County, not in Bedford County. Like I said earlier, you do want one entity and not private firms running around doing it. And just so you know, Murfreesboro also has 3 or 4 step systems that they run, so they actually do have their, they run step systems as well. But we're welcome to share our specifications and be involved in conversations as they move forward to help however we can. But that wasn't our intent to come here today or anything like that. So
We need help to do that. So if you help us do that, then we have set our rules and regulations. So then after that, if we get another utility district, they would have to go by these rules and regulations, no matter what. I mean, I don't know how many that are available for us to choose from. I don't think there is any other one, but that's just kind of what we need to do. Then we want it, because you wouldn't, if they came in and did the minimum TDEC, you wouldn't take it.
Oh, I don't think we would want any part of it, no.
So, so that's where, that's where we are. So that's where I would like to have, and we'll talk with us, maybe a relationship with you enough to help us. And then after that, somebody comes along better than y'all, that's our rules and regulations. That's our rules. So, that's where we would like to.
Our purpose is just present a recommendation to the planning commission.
Yeah, so and
And then
we
they take
need
it forth.
Then we had,
Kind of getting the cart before the horse is what I'm thinking.
yeah, that's what
We're
we
not
just
in
need.
negotiation terms yet.
No,
That's not
we-
where
No,
we're at.
no,
We're
like
just
I
trying
said,
to-
we're here just to give you a
As a
101.
consultant.
We're here to just, and we'll gladly share our specifications so you guys can figure out how you want to go. And again, as you move forward, we can answer any questions but, you know, I have a board that I answer to and you guys have a commission that you guys answer to. So, there's, you know, that wasn't our intent coming down here.
We're just here.
I know that.
Just so you know, so.
I mean, I-
gather information.
That's right, so.
But, that's what I would like to have, that basic rules and regulations with recommendations.
And these things that I've presented, I mean, trying to give you a good understanding of this, we've made mistakes along the way. So a lot of this is us learning from mistakes. We want to get better as it goes. And like somebody said earlier, your criteria is a living document. It's always subject to be updated and made better when you find an issue that needs to be corrected. So we do look at that. But when you look at what's been well publicized as far as issues statewide, that is one thing that we strive not to be part of. We don't want to be the same as everybody else. We want to be better, and that's the reason that we have the standards that we have.
Sounds like soils is the major thing that's gonna separate us
Agreed.
from everybody else.
Absolutely. It's that, as he said and hit on it so many times, it is soils. I mean, you can treat it, but it still has to go in the ground and percolate, you know, and you know, they don't give out discharge permits very often in Tennessee, you know, so, that's why this step systems have taken off so much. And, you know, so like you said, we've made a lot of mistakes, and so you're getting specifications and experience that we're going to hand over that's 25, 30 years in the making, you know, so we're welcome to share that and to, you know, like I said, we've already talked to Spring Hill as well on the same type of things, and so we're not afraid to share what we've learned over the years to help others and everything like that. So again, as you guys continue down your path, we'll gladly help and answer questions and do what we can to assist you guys.
When this was brought up, we started studying this, six, 7, I guess almost a year ago. And while you're here, John, I mean, is there something, and he gave us a nice presentation before through Shovel Power. Is there something you'd like to add that would help us?
This is very, very minor, and I want y'all to understand how important he is to this whole regime of what Consolidate is doing. The design standards that you set, you can design all you want, but if you don't have somebody qualified to review that material and to make sure that is getting implemented, you've got junk.
Right.
I don't care what you got. So it's very crucial that you have a design engineer. So they're going to hire some consultant. He's going to design it. He's going to try to adhere to your standards. He's going to try to cheat because he's working for that developer. So this man, in the role that he's in, he is by far the authority and is protecting Consolidated because no one else is going to look out for him except him. I'm just throwing that out there for you. So whatever y'all see as regulations that are above and beyond theirs, keep in mind they got 80 systems, got 11 more coming online. Y'all don't have none. What if you get 1? What if you get 2? What if you get 3? Your cost per system early on is far greater than what they have because it's absorbed by the number of lots. So you're going to take on a huge expense role until these systems get up enough that they're making themselves money and sustaining themselves. And just like they told you, these systems don't last forever. None of them will. You will have to redo. So the more duplicate fields y'all get, the more double areas y'all put in place, the developer's always going to cry for less.
Yep.
But who ultimately, in the end, is it going to come back on and they're going to have to pay for it? It's going to be the county.
And the homeowner.
And
Right.
if y'all have any other questions, I'll be glad to add. But I do think that Consolidated is doing an excellent job in the way they go about it. I think they've got the expertise to help y'all along. And I don't want to act like I'm an expert, but I do understand enough of this to know right from wrong and how a government entity could get sucked into wrong things.
And what he said is very important. The developer is in this to make money. And every time you're stricter or more conservative, it takes money away from them. I will say I have yet to ever receive a Christmas card from a developer. And I don't lose sleep over it because I'm hired by Roger to protect CUD. And that is what you need, is that person protecting you and the citizens of Bedford County to make sure this is done right, because ultimately you all live here, they all live here, and that's who your concern is, and not that person coming in trying to make a lot of money.
Well, we've been appointed to do that, by the county commission. That's our challenge, is to make it safe for Bedford County, and to go over and above. That was probably part of what when they were selected us.
I would say so.
They said they want, they don't.
I don't
want the
think they
minimum.
want, the county doesn't want the
And,
bare minimum. I think
If
they
we
want
had the
something that's
minimum, we
gonna
just
be-
wouldn't do anything.
Right.
And so that's our challenge too. And so I appreciate
Thank you both for
Jason
coming.
and
yeah.
Roger for coming.
I
Yeah,
have
do it.
one more question. You said somewhere around, just say $50 per homeowner. Now, is that the homeowners that is in the subdivision, or is that the entire consolidated?
That is only the people receiving the service, only our wastewater customers. That is it.
So if a man has a piece of property and he's got a perk site and it takes care of his home and he's not having to go into a step system, then he's not paying that $50 a month.
Yep. Same thing as somebody that has well water versus city water.
Anybody else have any from the gallery out here? Questions? And Roger, Jason, I appreciate you coming, and we'll be in touch and try to get a relationship. I think that's what it's all about. I think really only going back, I guess, now to our old business is to set up our next meeting, which I think would be next second Thursday. What we've got is set up, and that'd be the well, if y'all look at your calendar, I think it's February the 12th. And
5:30.
5:30, same place. My next question is do we need to, as far as our next meeting, talk about, do we want to discuss our next move, or do you want to, us trying to get in contact with Consolidated to help, start writing these rules and regulations, or
If he would
is
be
that's
able
what
to
this?
get us a set of his
Yes, sir. A
standards
copy.
that they adopt, so that we would all be able to review them,
What,
and not just what's online, but whatever he's working on. I think that would be very helpful. I would like to.
I agree.
what would like to, I won't speak maybe for, well, current approved, and then, and then,
Both.
and
would be great.
recommendations.
Yes.
I like to have the current, I would, and then any recommendations,
Revised.
whether it's 100% or, and then we may take them and we may not. We want to have something that you would be willing to accept. I mean, that's like,
I think that would be good.
TDEX, you wouldn't accept.
I might can get Polly Capali to come in this next time, and I think they've admitted he's probably one of the best in this part. Used to retire from TDEC. Analyze and talk to us about. I talked to him. He'd had back surgery.
Yeah.
He was TDEC till he retired, and he chief advisor to them.
So, and he worked a lot more with a single family, one home, one system, and commercial and that type of thing, more so than these, but he's still very knowledgeable of the soils and everything,
Or will we,
that kind of thing.
maybe your soil scientist, talk to that lady?
Well, that's gonna be up to Roger
I
as
mean,
far
that's,
as,
is that something is that something we want to consider? I mean, I don't know, I'm just
Well-
throwing that out there to talk to.
to talk to. Now, when it comes to talking about soils and to teach about
Well,
soils,
I mean,
she's
we're ready.
excellent.
She's not up for hire.
Yeah, she's not.
Well, no, I mean, just as far as gathering information.
Yep.
But
Randy
really,
Dickerson-
we're
Randy Dickerson's a good-
interested in rules and regulations.
Well, and one thing
No,
you
ma'am.
mentioned, when you
I
look
can
at
say that.
what you implement at the beginning, I would suggest, however conservative you're thinking about being, do that at the beginning and don't tier it and go
Yeah.
get a little more later, because it's gonna be harder later to implement something more conservative than starting at the very beginning. Just start then, because then when they come in at the beginning, they know what they've got. And then in 10 years or 5 years, if you think, you know what, we should have done more, but we didn't.
But we would have a process like you have to, to increase it if we wanted to along the way. I'm sure you can change your rules.
I'm just saying, you
you know.
can probably save yourself some
But I-
political headache at that point.
But if you could possibly have us something, maybe what you have preliminary and your recommendations, by our next meeting, could that be possible?
Okay, when is that?
It'd be the 12th,
Of February?
February the 12th.
I will do my best on that.
And I mean,
And I've
again,
got-
we've got a year, but I mean, we want to do this as fast as we can. And, cause and then, if we want somebody else, we can talk to them who Denny was talking about, and then maybe be able to discuss these that they've provided us, if they can get it. That sounds, anything else?
Alan, you're gonna run into some things here in Bedford County that, I'm not gonna say that Rutherford County doesn't have, but, we have, probably, consistently 25 to 30% more sinkholes in Bedford County than Rutherford County has. All of ours are underlying draining to the river. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but should you have fish kill, those are things that have to be incorporated into those designs. It may mean the buffers that are distanced from the sinkholes you may have to have curtain drains to redirect flow from going into the areas like that. You may have a great big hill up above you, and then you see water migrating out at the base of those hills. You don't want drip fields right in those type areas. I'm not trying, all I'm saying is there's other levels of design that also have to be considered in these designs of these systems. So I don't want to limit y'all to just some things. So
The soil scientist should pick those up, though, shouldn't he?
that's more of an engineer type situation.
Engineer,
I'm not
okay.
gonna say it's all that. All I'm saying is ask a multitude of people before once you feel like you've got everything the way you want it, sit down and ask some more people, what else could I put in? Should I put in? What have I not thought of? Nobody's perfect. That's all.
Like soil scientists and,
Or another engineer,
Engineer.
anything that's worked in this county.
It's gotta be this county.
Yeah,
yeah.
There's,
Well,
and just like Sammy
should have access
he
to
knows
it.
everything in Flat Creek, and he can tell you how high the water table's been out there, where it crossed on the bridges. You know what I'm saying? Same thing in Halls Mill. You know where your flood areas
Right.
are. Those flood maps are not always correct, and we have a lot of areas in Bedford County that the flood maps are not determined on.
Those stone maps Sammy was talking about show the sinkholes, show a lot of sinkholes,
They do.
but they may not show them all, I'm sure.
But
That's all I said.
but a lot of the 100-year flood levels have disappeared from TDEC maps in the last 5 to 6 years.
Interesting.
Well, I'll touch base with y'all in the next couple of weeks or so.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
Thank you much.
Thank you, very good.
Good to meet you.
Did you? Yeah. Thanks.
Anything else that did come before the committee? Not, I'll,
Make a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
second. All right, all those in favor?
Bye.
All right, thank you.
We get over.